Chapter 4. Sir Henry Baskerville. Our clients were punctual to their appointment, for the clock had just struck 10 when Dr. Mortimer was shown up, followed by the young baronet.
Mr. Holmes, Dr. Watson, this is Sir Henry Baskerville.
How do you do, gentlemen? Mr. Holmes, it's the strangest thing. If my friend here had not proposed coming round to you this morning, I should have come on my own account.
Pray take a seat, Sir Henry. You've had some remarkable experience since you arrived in London?
Only a joke as like as not. It was this letter, if you can call it a letter, which reached me this morning at the Northumberland Hotel.
May I see it?
Of course.
As you value your life or your reason, keep away from them more.
Who knew that you were going to the Northumberland Hotel?
Well, no one could have known. We only decided after I met Dr. Mortimer.
What do you make of it, Dr. Mortimer?
It is most strange.
You must allow at any rate that there is nothing supernatural about this.
No, sir, but it might very well come from someone who was convinced that the business is supernatural.
What business? It seems to me that you gentlemen know a great deal more than I do about my own affairs.
You shall share our knowledge before you leave this room, Sir Henry. I promise you that.
What do you make of the message, Mr. Holmes?
I passed the letter to Holmes.
The letters, you observe, are printed in rough characters, indicating an effort to conceal the author's writing, which suggests that the writing might be known or come to be known by you. The writing is not in an accurate line. That may point to carelessness, or it may point to agitation and hurry. I incline to the latter view, since the matter was evidently important. Did the composer fear an interruption, and from whom? I'm almost certain that it was composed in a hotel.
How in the world can you say that?
The pen has spluttered twice in a single word, and has run dry 3 times in a short address, showing that there was very little ink in the bottle. A private pen or ink bottle is seldom allowed to be in such a state, but you know the hotel ink and the hotel pen, where it is rare to get anything else. And now, Sir Henry, has anything else of interest happened to you since you have been in London?
I do not believe so.
You have not observed anyone follow or watch you?
I seem to have walked right into the thick of a dime novel. Why in thunder should anyone follow or watch me?
You have nothing else to report to us before we go into this matter?
Well, it depends upon what you think worth reporting.
Anything out of the ordinary routine?
Well, I don't know much about British life yet, but I hope that to lose one of your boots is not part of the ordinary routine of life over here.
You have lost one of your boots?
Well, I've mislaid it anyhow. I put them both outside my door last night, and there was only one in the morning. The worst of it is, I only bought the pair last night at the Strand, and I have never had them on.
Then I understand that on your arrival in London yesterday, you went out at once and bought a pair of boots.
I purchased a whole new wardrobe. If I am to be squire down there, I must dress the part.
If you've never worn them, why did you put them out to be cleaned?
They were tan boots, and they've never been varnished.
A lone boot seems a singularly useless thing to steal.
And now, gentlemen, it is time that you kept your promise and gave me a full account of what we are all driving at.
Your request is a very reasonable one. Dr. Mortimer, I think you could do no better than to tell your story as you told it to us.
Thus encouraged, Dr. Mortimer drew his papers from his pocket and presented the whole case as he had done upon the morning before. Sir Henry Baskerville listened with the deepest attention.
Well, I seem to have come into an inheritance with a vengeance. And now there's the affair of this letter sent to me at the hotel. I suppose it fits into its place.
It seems to show that someone knows more than we do about what goes on upon the moor.
And also that someone is not ill-disposed towards you, since they warn you of danger.
Or it may be they wish for their own purposes to scare me away.
That, of course, is possible, but the practical point which we now have to decide, Sir Henry, is whether it is or it is not advisable for you to go to Baskerville Hall.
There is no devil in hell or man upon this earth that can prevent me from going to the home of my own people. I require time to think over all you've told me, Mr. Holmes. Would you and Dr. Watson come around for lunch with us? Say 2?
Is that convenient to you, Watson?
Perfectly.
Then you may expect us. Shall I have a cab called?
I'd prefer to walk, for this affair has flurried me, rather.
I'll join you in a walk, with pleasure.
Then we meet again at 2 o'clock. Good morning.
We heard the steps of our visitors descend the stair and the bang of the front door.
Your hat and boots, Watson, quick! Not a moment to lose.
We rushed downstairs in pursuit. There they are. Shall I run on and stop them?
Not for the world, my dear Watson.
Keeping 100 yards behind, we followed into Oxford Street and then down Regent Street.
There's our man, Watson. Come along. We'll have a good look at him if we can't do no more.
At that instant, I was aware of a bushy black beard and a pair of piercing eyes turned upon us through the side window of a hansom cab. Something was screamed to the driver, and the cab flew madly off down Regent Street. Who was that man?
Sir Henry's evidently been very closely shadowed by someone since he's been in town.
What a pity we didn't get the number of the cab.
Do you honestly believe that I did not get the number?
Not for a moment.
Number 2704 is our man. Could you swear to that man's face within the cab?
I could swear only to the beard.
Which in all probability was a false one.
What is our course of action?
I shall wire to the identity of the cabman. Then we rendezvous with Sir Henry and see how to proceed from there.
Chapter 5. 3 Broken Threads. By the time I arrived at the Northumberland Hotel, Holmes was already there and speaking with the clerk.
Have you any objection to my looking at your register?
Not in the least.
The name that has been added after Sir Henry, Mr. Aldmore. I seem to remember the name. Excuse my curiosity, but often in calling upon one friend, one finds another.
He's an invalid gentleman, sir. A retired lawyer. He always comes to us when he's in town.
Thank you. I'm afraid I cannot claim his acquaintance.
Very good, sir.
Holmes took me away from earshot of the clerk.
It appears, Watson, that whilst the bearded gentleman is very anxious to watch Sir Henry, he is equally anxious not to be seen.
At that moment, Dr. Mortimer entered, along with Sir Henry, who was holding a single black boot. Hello, my dear fellow. Still looking for your boot?
Yes, sir.
But surely you said that it was a new brown boot.
So it was, sir. And now it's an old black one.
What? You don't mean to say...
I only had 3 pairs in the world. Last night, someone came in and took one of my new brown ones. And today, one of the old black ones. Mr. Holmes, you'll excuse my troubling you about what is clearly a practical joke.
I think it's well worth troubling about.
Why? What do you make of it?
I don't profess to understand it yet, Sir Henry. You have had time to contemplate things? May I ask what your intentions are?
To go to Baskerville Hall.
On the whole, I think that your decision is a wise one. I have ample evidence that you are being dogged in London.
Dogged? By whom?
That, unfortunately, is what I cannot tell you. Have you among your neighbours or acquaintances on Dartmoor any man with a black, full beard?
Barrymore. Sir Charles's butler has a full black beard.
And where is Barrymore?
He's in charge of the hall.
We had best ascertain if he really is there. What is the nearest telegraph office?
Grimpen.
We'll send a wire to the postmaster telling him to deliver a telegram into Barrymore's own hand, and if absent, to return wire to you, Sir Henry, at this hotel.
By the way, Dr. Mortimer, who is this Barrymore fellow?
His family have looked after the hall for 4 generations now. So far as I know, he and his wife are as respectable a couple as any in the county.
Did Barrymore profit at all by Sir Charles's will?
Well, he and his wife had £500 each.
Did they know that they would receive this?
Yes. Sir Charles was very fond of talking about the provisions of his will.
That is very interesting.
Sir Charles left many insignificant sums to individuals, including myself, and a number of public charities. The residue, of course, went to Sir Henry.
And how much was the residue?
£740,000.
I had no idea so gigantic a sum was involved. Well, Sir Henry, you must go to Devonshire without delay, but you must not go alone.
Dr. Mortimer returns with me.
Dr. Mortimer has his practice to attend to, and his house is several miles away from yours. No, Sir Henry, you must take with you a trusty man who will always be by your side.
Is it possible that you yourself could come, Mr. Holmes?
At present, unfortunately, it is impossible.
Whom would you recommend, then?
If my friend, Dr. Watson, could undertake it, there is no man who is better worth having at your side.
Well, now, that's real kind of you, Dr. Watson. If you will come down to Baskerville Hall and see me through, I'll never forget it.
I will come, with pleasure.
And you will report very carefully to me. I suppose that by Saturday all might be ready?
Would that suit, Dr. Watson?
Perfectly.
Then Saturday, unless you hear to the contrary, we shall meet at the 10:30 train from Paddington.
On our return to Baker Street, we sat together in silence as Holmes contemplated the case. Just before dinner, a telegram was handed in. Have just heard that Barrymore is at the Hall, Baskerville.
There goes one of our threads, Watson. There is nothing more stimulating than a case where things go against you.
We still have the cabman who drove the spy.
Indeed. We must just now wait for word on him.
Later that evening, the bell rang. A rough-looking fellow entered, who was evidently the man himself.
I got a message that a gent at this address has been inquiring for 2704. Well, I came here straight from the yard to ask you to your face what you have against me.
I have nothing in the world against you, my good man. On the contrary, I have half a sovereign for you if you will give me a clear answer to my questions.
What was it you wanted to ask, sir?
First of all, your name.
John Clayton, sir.
Tell me all about the fair who came and watched this house at 10 o'clock this morning and afterwards followed the two gentlemen down Regent Street.
Well, you seem to know as much as I do already.
My good fellow, this is a very serious business, and you may find yourself in a pretty bad position if you try to hide anything from me. What can you tell me about your fair?
Well, he gave me his name.
Oh, that was imprudent. And what was the name he mentioned?
Well, his name was Mr. Sherlock Holmes.
Sherlock Holmes, was it?
Yes, sir, that was the gentleman's name.
Excellent. Tell me where you picked him up and all that occurred.
Well, he hailed me at 9 in Trafalgar Square and offered me 2 guineas if I would do exactly what he wanted all day and ask no questions. Well, first, we drove down to the Northumberland Hotel and waited there until 2 gentlemen came out and took a cab from the rank. We followed their cab until it pulled up somewhere near here. We waited maybe an hour. Then the 2 gentlemen passed us and we followed them down Baker Street and we continued until we got 3/4 of the way down Regent Street. Then my gentleman, he cried that I should drive right away to Waterloo Station as hard as I could go. Then he went into the station, but before he left, he turned around and said, "You might be interested to know that you have been driving Sherlock Holmes around all day."
And how would you describe Mr. Sherlock Holmes?
Well, I'd put him 40 years of age. He was of middle height, 2 or 3 inches shorter than yourself, sir. He was dressed like a toff, and he had a black beard and a pale face. I don't know as I could say more than that.
Well then, here is your half-sovereign. There's another one waiting for you if you can bring any more information. Good night.
Good night, sir, and thank you.
I tell you, Watson, this time we have got a foe who is worthy of our steel. He knew that Sir Henry Baskerville had consulted me, spotted who I was in Regent Street, conjectured that I got the number of the cab, and so sent back this audacious message. I can only wish you better luck in Devonshire. But I'm not in an easy mind about it.
About what?
About sending you. It's an ugly, dangerous business, Watson. And the more I see of it, the less I like it.
Chapter 6. Baskerville Hall. Upon the appointed day, Sherlock Holmes drove with me to the station.
I will not bias your mind by suggesting theories or suspicions, Watson. I wish you simply to report facts in the fullest possible manner to me, especially the relations between young Baskerville and his neighbours.
Would it not be well, in the first place, to get rid of this Barrymore couple?
By no means. If they are innocent, it would be a cruel injustice, and if they are guilty, better to keep them close. There is our friend Dr. Mortimer, whom I believe to be entirely honest. There is Stapleton and his sister. There is Mr. Frankland, who is also an unknown factor. And there are 1 or 2 other neighbours. These are the folk who must be your special study.
I will do my best.
Keep your revolver near you day and night, and never relax your precautions. Please remind Sir Henry that under no circumstances is he to go onto the moor alone.
The journey was a swift and pleasant one, and I spent it in making the more intimate acquaintance of my 2 companions and in playing with Dr. Mortimer's spaniel. In a very few hours, the brown earth had become ruddy, and the brick had changed to granite.
I've been over a good part of the world, Dr. Watson, but I have never seen a place to compare with this.
I never met a Devonshire man yet who did not swear by his county.
You were very young when you last saw Baskerville Hall, were you not?
I've never seen it. I was a boy at the time of my father's death, and from there we went straight to a friend in America. I'm as keen as possible to see the moor.
Then your wish is easily granted, for there is your first sight.
Dr. Mortimer pointed out of the carriage. A couple of hours later, the train pulled into a small town called Coombe Tracy. From there, we took a horse and carriage. I was surprised to observe that by the gate there stood two soldiers who leaned upon their short rifles and glanced keenly at us as we passed. The coachman gave Sir Henry a nod, and we were on our way. Rolling pasture lands curved upward on either side of us, and old gabled houses peeped out from amid the thick green foliage. At every turn, Sir Henry gave an exclamation of delight. But to me, behind the peaceful and sunlit countryside, there rose ever the long, gloomy curve of the moor, broken by the jagged and sinister hills.
Halloa! What is this?
In front of us on a small hill was a mounted soldier, watching the road along which we travelled. Dr. Mortimer turned to our driver.
What is this, Perkins?
There's a convict escaped from Princetown prison, sir. He's been out 3 days now, and the warders watch every road and every station.
It seems a little extreme for an escaped convict.
It isn't like any ordinary convict. It's Selden, the Notting Hill murderer. That man would cut your throat in an instant.
I remember the case well. Holmes took a great interest on account of the ferocity and brutality of the crime. The road in front of us grew bleaker and wilder. Now and then we passed a moorland cottage, walled and roofed with stone. Two high, narrow towers rose over the trees. The driver pointed with his whip.
Baskerville Hall.
As we passed through the gateway into the avenue, the old trees shot their branches in a sombre tunnel over our heads.
It's no wonder my uncle felt as if trouble were coming on him at such a place as this.
The centre of the house was a heavy block of building. The whole front was draped in ivy, with a patch clipped bare here and there where a window or a coat of arms broke through. From this central block rose the ancient twin towers, pierced with many loopholes.
Welcome, Sir Henry. Welcome to Baskerville Hall.
Thank you.
Forgive me. Barrymore, sir.
Yes, of course. This is Dr. John Watson. Dr. Mortimer, you of course know.
Would you wish dinner to be served at once, sir?
You don't mind me driving straight home, Sir Henry? My wife is expecting me.
Oh, surely you'll stay and have some dinner.
No, I must go. I shall probably find some work awaiting for me. Never hesitate, night or day, to send for me if I can be of service. Good night to you both.
Good night.
Dr. Mortimer.
Sir, I feel it best to say this now. My wife and I will be happy to stay with you till you have made your fresh arrangements.
Fresh arrangements?
I only meant, sir, that you would naturally wish to make changes in your household.
Do you and your wife wish to leave?
Only when it is quite convenient to you, sir.
But your family have been with us for several generations. I should be sorry to begin my life here by breaking an old family connection.
We feel that also, sir. But to tell the truth, Sir Charles's death gave us a great shock and made these surroundings very painful to us.
But what do you intend to do?
Sir Charles's generosity has given us the means to establish ourselves in some business. And now, sir, perhaps I'd best show you up to your rooms.
A square balustraded gallery ran round the top of the old hall, approached by a double stair. From this central point, two long corridors extended from which all the bedrooms opened. The dining room, which opened out of the hall, was a place of shadow and gloom. Black beams shot across above our heads, with a smoke-darkened ceiling beyond them. A dim line of portraits of ancestors, in every variety of dress, stared down upon us and daunted us by their silent company.
My word. It isn't a very cheerful place. I don't wonder that my uncle got a little jumpy if he lived alone in such a house as this. If it suits you, we'll retire early tonight, and perhaps things may seem more cheerful in the morning.
I found myself weary and yet wakefully tossing restlessly from side to side. I looked out from my window. Beyond the grassy space which lay in front of the hall lay two copses of trees. Beyond them, a broken fringe of rocks, and the long, low curve of the melancholy moor.